Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my weekly Scriptures for Thoughts video show, Bronx Special, up here in my apartment room in Allerton Avenue, Bronx, New York City, where everybody works hard, hustle the wise way, do down payment investments, and down payment on investments be all clean and spiffy. All up in my apartment room, Allerton Avenue, Bronx, New York City. Now, I'm the host of the most, Reverend-Material preacher Anthony T.C. Walker. Now, my sermon topic for tonight is, for us as bachelors, how can we take the steps from being single to being a significant other and part of being a couple? Now, throughout time and space and times, you know, when you single, when you try so hard to get to the next level of dating, of building relationships, getting a girlfriend, getting engaged, getting married, and having a family afterwards, you ask yourself, what must I do? What must I do to get from being single to being married, to being part of a significant other? A part of being a couple with my wife. Now, here's my first example. My first example is Moses. Of course, Moses did all the right things, all the right things. He was powerful in speech and action, and he fought up for people that was less unfortunate, and plus he helped he helped his fellow Israelite needs, and he helped being an architect of the Egyptians, of the Egyptians on part of installing buildings, and this is what he does for his task, for his goodwill to God. Now, his persecution was after he killed the Egyptian that was treating so badly the Israelite. Then one of the Israelite, well, one of the guys that's an Egyptian that told on him, and then he was arrested in front of the Egyptian army, and then next thing you know that he escaped the Egyptian army. He went to a far place, in Mount Hebron, and then that was his persecution, that he was stripped away from his own countrymen in Egypt, from all the women that he likes, that likes him back, and all his friends that he thought that was his friends. So he had to face hardships of being a foreign stranger in Mount Hebron for 40 years. And now here's when Moses received the tribulation. He met this watering girl named Zipporah. Then they start talking, having conversations, building friendships, relationships. Next thing you know, Moses got married. Moses had received Zipporah, daughter of Jethro, as his wife. Now, that's my first example of as bachelors, as bachelors, how can we take the steps to get from being single to being a significant other, of part of a couple? Now, here's my second example. Now, my second example is Jesus' father, John, who married the Virgin Mary. Now, John did all the great things by doing what he had to do. He do all the right things he do, and obey the commandments. That was his task, to obey the commandments and do all the right things for other people. Now, here's the persecution. The persecution was that John had gone steady with Mary, but the thing was that he wanted to divorce her quietly, and then he felt kind of shameful about it, and then after that, an angel of, and after that, here's the tribulation. After that, the angel of the Lord told John, Jesus' father, John, do not feel ashamed or down, sad, or discouraged. Take Mary as your wife. And from there they got married. And the tribulation was John had received Mary as his wife. And later on they had Jesus. And then they had here's the hardship part. They had to go to a resort inn. You had to go to the inn, to the line of David's family, but everything was all crowded, all booked out, so there had no room for the inn. So John, Jesus' father, since he was a carpenter, he had to make his own apartment. He had to make his own home, his own fields and stuff, his own fields for his flocks, and his own stable. And now, where Jesus was lying in the manger. Now, my third example is Boaz. Boaz was a righteous man that he was a guest, he as a host, treat his guests very right. And in the land of Canaan, I believe. In the land of Canaan. So Boaz did the right positive things by treating others like the way he would be treated. Now here's the persecution part. He met Ruth. Ruth and Boaz had a hard time dressing the floor in Ruth chapter 3. Then here's the tribulation part. Boaz had built a friendship with Ruth, strong relationship, and then after that, Boaz had received Ruth as his wife. Now here's the third. Now this is the third example. Boaz, the third example of now as single bachelors. Now as bachelors, how can we take the steps from being single to being a significant other and part of being a couple? Now my last example is Jesus. Of course, Jesus did all the righteous things of God's task of feeding the poor, of healing those that are sick, that telling parables and stories as part of fulfillments to the prophecies in the prophets long time ago, and doing miracles, great miracles that was out of this world in biblical times. Now here's the persecution. The persecution was Jesus was chased by the bad views. They wanted to stone him, and they put him down, treat him badly, and they did not believe in him. They doubted him. And then, of all things, they crucified him by the help of the chief priests. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Roman soldiers had crucified Jesus on the cross. Now here's the tribulations. Now the tribulations of Jesus happened after Jesus was raised from the dead. After 3 days he was raised from the dead. And later on in the book of Revelation, it speaks how Jesus was the groom, and then out of heaven comes out of New Jerusalem, out of heaven, his wife. I mean his bride. the heavenly city of Jerusalem that Jesus will receive and forever and ever, ever and ever. Now, that's my fourth example of us, of us being single bachelors. How can we take the steps from being single to being single to being a significant other, a part of being a couple? Now, here's the conclusion. Whenever you wonder about where you will be going on dates, or getting married, going on dates, build a relationship with a lady, going steady, getting engaged and getting married, do not wonder about all these things. Remember this. Remember this, like I have preached to you before. As a single bachelor, how can you go? You must go through these steps for being a single, from being single to being a significant other and part of being a couple with your female companion. Now that sums up everything. Now, as for in my apartment room in Allerton Avenue, Bronx, New York City, where everybody works hard, hustle the wise way, do down payment investments, be all clean and spiffy. All up in my apartment room, Allerton Avenue, Bronx, New York City. Now, as for my weekly Scripture for Thought video show, I'm your host and most Reverend-Material preacher, Anthony Wolf said, "Bye-bye, so long, that time for rap."